think you're being strong, but you're actually being a coward with yourself. Real strength isn't pretending you don't feel anything. It's processing what you feel without letting it control you. Here's what I see every damn day. You're sitting in a meeting, and your boss throws you under the bus for something that wasn't even your fault. Your jaw tightens. Your shoulders go up. That familiar heat starts building in your chest. But what do? You smile. You nod. You say, "I'll handle it," like you always do. Then you walk back to your desk, sit down, and that anger? It doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there, fermenting, like poison in a bottle you're too proud to open. How many times have you swallowed your anger because showing it would make you look unprofessional or emotional? Look, I get it. Nobody taught us how to handle this stuff. We learned that good men don't lose their temper. Good men keep it together. Good men are rocks, solid, unmovable, reliable. But here's what they didn't tell you about being a rock. Rocks don't process anything. They just sit there and take the weather until they crack. And you are cracking, aren't you? Maybe not on the outside. Maybe you've gotten really good at the performance. But inside there's this constant tension, this background noise of irritation that makes small things feel huge. Your girlfriend leaves dishes in the sink, and suddenly you're furious. Not at the dishes, but at everything you've been holding back for weeks. The worst part? When you finally do explode, and you will explode, you'll hate yourself for it. You'll promise it'll never happen again. You'll double down on the containment, building those walls even higher. But containment isn't discipline. Containment is just delayed explosion. We've been sold this lie that emotional control means emotional suppression. That real men don't feel anger. They just, transcend it? Meditate it away? That's not how feelings work, man. That's not how you work. Your anger isn't your enemy. Your anger is information. It's your nervous system telling you that something isn't right. Maybe it's a boundary that got crossed. Maybe it's respect that isn't being shown. Maybe it's energy that needs to move through your body instead of getting stuck in your throat. But most of us learn to treat anger like a dangerous animal that needs to be caged. So we cage it. And caged animals don't just sit quietly forever. They pace, they growl, and eventually they find a way out. Usually at the worst possible moment, in the worst possible way. The truth is, you're not managing your anger. Your anger is managing you. And until you learn the difference between processing and suppressing, between discipline and avoidance, you're going to keep cycling through this same pattern. Contain, pressure build, explosion, guilt, repeat. Let me tell you what's really happening when you control your emotions. You're not controlling anything. You're just moving the problem somewhere else. Think about it like this. When you hold your breath, the carbon dioxide doesn't disappear. It builds up in your bloodstream until your body forces you to exhale. Same thing with anger. When you suppress it, that emotional energy doesn't vanish. It relocates. It goes into your shoulders, making them tight and sore. It goes into your stomach, creating that constant knot you've gotten used to. It goes into your sleep, keeping you up at 2 a.m., replaying conversations from 3 days ago. It goes into your relationships, making you short with people who don't deserve it. The anger finds a way out, man. It always finds a way out. What we call emotional discipline is often just emotional displacement. And displacement isn't strength. It's postponement with interest. Every day you don't process what you're feeling, the bill gets bigger. The pressure builds, and when it finally releases, it's not clean anger about the original issue anymore. It's contaminated with weeks or months of other stuff you've been carrying. Marcus Aurelius knew this. The guy literally ran the Roman Empire, dealt with wars, betrayals, political chaos, and he spent his private time writing about emotions, not suppressing them, understanding them. In his meditations, he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Notice he didn't say, "Ignore your mind" or "shut down your feelings." He said, "Understand what you can control and what you can't." The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. They were men who learned to feel without being controlled by what they felt. There's a massive difference between those two things. But somewhere along the way, we lost the distinction. We started thinking that feeling less made us stronger, when what actually makes you stronger is feeling fully and responding consciously. Here's the first uncomfortable reality. Your need to appear in control is actually making you less in control. When you refuse to acknowledge anger, you can't direct it. When you can't direct it, it directs you. You become reactive instead of responsive. You start snapping at people for small things because the big things never got processed. You develop what I call anger debt. All the emotional energy you never spent on the original issues now demanding payment at random, inappropriate moments. The second reality is harder to swallow. Most of your anger isn't even about what you think it's about. You're not really mad about the dishes in the sink. You're mad about feeling unappreciated. You're not really mad about the traffic. You're mad about feeling like your time doesn't matter. You're not really mad about your coworker's comment. You're mad about feeling disrespected. But because you never learned to identify the real source, you keep treating symptoms while the disease spreads. Carl Jung spent his career studying this exact pattern. He called it shadow work. The parts of ourselves we deny or suppress don't disappear. They grow in the dark, they accumulate power, and they eventually surface in ways that sabotage our conscious intentions. Jung observed that men, in particular, often suppress anger until it becomes what he called poisonous resentment, anger that's been contaminated by shame, self-judgment, and time. The third reality cuts deepest. Your suppressed anger is poisoning your capacity for other emotions too. When you numb anger, you don't just numb anger. Emotions aren't separate channels you can control individually. They're part of one system. Shut down your capacity to feel anger cleanly, and you'll find your capacity for joy, excitement, passion, and even love getting muted too. You become emotionally flat, functional, but not alive. This is why so many men hit their 30s and 40s feeling like they're going through the motions. They've gotten so good at not feeling the difficult emotions that they've accidentally trained themselves not to feel the good ones either. They look at their lives and think, "This should make me happy." But the happiness is muted, distant, like watching life through thick glass. I see this pattern everywhere. The guy who works his ass off for 20 years, builds everything he thought he wanted, and then sits in his nice house wondering why he feels empty. The guy who's successful by every external measure, but can't remember the last time he felt genuinely excited about anything. The guy who's so controlled, so disciplined, so together, that he's basically sleepwalking through his own existence. What happened? He learned to suppress anger so effectively that he suppressed vitality itself. Because anger, when it's clean and processed, isn't just about boundaries and respect. It's about aliveness. It's energy. It's the part of you that says, I matter, my values matter, my time matters, my needs matter. When you shut that voice down completely, you don't just lose anger. You lose your sense of mattering at all. And here's the cruel irony. The very thing you're trying to protect by suppressing your anger, your relationships, your reputation, your image as a good guy, those are exactly the things that suffer most when anger gets displaced. Because suppressed anger doesn't stay suppressed. It leaks. It comes out sideways. It makes you passive-aggressive, chronically irritated, emotionally unavailable. It makes you the kind of man who says he's fine when he's clearly not fine, who gives one-word answers when his partner asks how his day went, who builds walls instead of bridges. The people closest to you can feel your suppressed anger, even when you think you're hiding it perfectly. It creates this weird tension where everyone's walking on eggshells because they can sense something's off, but nobody knows what or how to address it. Your emotional suppression doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone who has to live and work around the version of you that's constantly holding something back. So what happens if you keep going down this road? Let me paint you a picture of where this leads, because I've seen it too many times to count. You become that guy in his 50s who's successful, but whose kids don't really know him, who's been married for 20 years but feels like a stranger in his own house, who's respected at work but has no real friends, who looks good on paper but feels hollow inside. The first thing that dies is spontaneity. When you're constantly monitoring and controlling your emotional responses, you lose the ability to be present and reactive in healthy ways. You become calculated in everything. Your responses, your expressions, even your laughter. People start describing you as distant or hard to read because there's this invisible barrier between what you're actually feeling and what you allow yourself to express. Your relationships suffer in ways you might not even notice at first. Your partner stops sharing certain things with you because they learn that your controlled response makes them feel unheard. Your kids learn not to come to you with emotional problems because you either shut down or try to solve instead of just listening. Your friends start having deeper conversations with other people because you've trained them that depth makes you uncomfortable. But the real damage happens to you. Chronic anger suppression rewires your nervous system. Your body stays in a constant state of low-level tension because it never gets to complete the stress cycle. This isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Suppressed anger contributes to everything from high blood pressure to digestive issues to sleep problems. Your body is literally keeping score of every emotion you refuse to feel. Then there's the energy cost. Do you know how much mental bandwidth it takes to constantly monitor and suppress your natural responses? It's exhausting. This is why a lot of men feel tired all the time, despite not doing anything particularly strenuous. They're running background processes 24/7, using enormous amounts of energy to keep their emotions locked down. Eventually, something gives. Maybe it's a health scare that forces you to confront how disconnected you've become from your own body. Maybe it's your partner finally telling you they feel like they're living with a polite stranger. Maybe it's looking at your kids and realizing they see you as a provider, but not as a person. Or maybe it's just waking up one day and realizing you can't remember the last time you felt genuinely excited about anything. Here's what you need to do. And I'm going to give this to you straight because complicated systems don't work when you're already overwhelmed. There are 4 things you need to master, and you need to master them in order. First, learn to recognize anger in your body before it becomes anger in your head. Most guys wait until they're already furious to acknowledge they're angry. By then, it's too late for clean processing. Start paying attention to the early physical signals. Tension in your jaw, tightness in your shoulders, that slight increase in your heart rate, heat building in your chest. These are your early warning systems. When you catch anger at this stage, you can work with it instead of against it. This isn't about suppressing these signals. It's about recognizing them as information. Your body is telling you something before your mind has even categorized it as a problem. Most men have been so disconnected from their physical responses that they miss these early signals completely. They go from 0 to explosive because they never learn to read the increments in between. Practice this during low-stakes situations first. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when your coffee order gets messed up, when your phone glitches, use these minor irritations as training grounds to notice your physical responses without immediately jumping to action or suppression. Just observe. Just acknowledge. Okay, my body is responding to this. Interesting. Second, create space for processing, not just containment. This means scheduling time, actual time on your calendar, to feel what you've been carrying. 20 minutes, twice a week, alone, with no distractions. No phone, no music, no tasks. Just you and whatever emotions have been building up. During this time, let yourself feel angry about the things that actually deserve anger. Don't try to rationalize it away or solve it or make it productive. Just feel it. Let your body experience the full cycle of the emotion without immediately jumping to action. Most anger wants to move through you, not stay in you. But it can't move through if you never give it permission to be there in the first place. This might feel unnatural at first because you've been conditioned to believe that feeling anger serves no purpose. But emotions aren't just random chemical reactions. They're information processing systems. Anger processes violations of your boundaries, threats to your values, and situations where action might be needed. When you skip the processing stage, you lose access to that information. Third, learn the difference between anger and rage, between processing and venting. Processing is private, intentional, and temporary. It's about feeling the emotion fully so it can complete its cycle and give you its information. Venting is public, reactive, and usually just spreads the emotional contamination to other people. When you process anger cleanly, you often discover what it's really about. Maybe you're not actually mad at your coworker for that comment. You're mad at yourself for not speaking up about something weeks ago. Maybe you're not mad about the messy house. You're mad about feeling like your efforts go unnoticed. Clean anger processing helps you identify the real issue so you can address it effectively. Rage, on the other hand, is anger that's been contaminated by shame, helplessness, or accumulated pressure. Rage wants to destroy rather than inform. Rage is what happens when you skip the processing stage too many times and the system overloads. Learning to process anger regularly prevents most rage episodes from ever happening. Fourth, develop clean expression channels. This means learning to communicate about anger without dumping it on other people. When you've processed the emotion and identified what it's really about, you can address the situation from a place of clarity instead of reactivity. This might sound like, I noticed I had a strong reaction when that happened. I need to think about why and figure out how to address it constructively. Or, I'm feeling some anger about this situation, and I want to talk about it when I can do it without making it your problem to manage. Clean expression acknowledges the emotion without making other people responsible for fixing it or absorbing it. It creates space for addressing real issues without the contamination of unprocessed emotional energy. But here's what happens when you start doing this work, and this is the part that might surprise you. When you learn to process anger cleanly, you don't become more angry. You become less angry. Because most of your anger was actually frustration about not being able to express or process anger. When you give yourself permission to feel it fully in appropriate contexts, the emotion can complete its cycle and move on. You also become more present. When you're not using energy to suppress emotions, that energy becomes available for other things. You become more creative, more spontaneous, more genuinely engaged with your life. People start commenting that you seem more like yourself, which is interesting because what they're really noticing is that you stopped performing the role of someone who doesn't feel things. Your relationships improve too, but not in the way you might expect. You don't become easier to deal with. You become more real to deal with. When people know that your calm comes from genuine peace rather than suppression, they trust it more. When they know you can handle your own emotions, they feel safer sharing theirs with you. Look, you've got a choice to make. You can keep pretending that stuffing your emotions makes you stronger, or you can learn what actual emotional strength looks like. You can keep building pressure until something explodes, or you can learn to release that pressure consciously and regularly. But understand this, the cost of emotional suppression only goes up over time. Every day you don't deal with this, the bill gets bigger. Every relationship you keep at arm's length because you're afraid of being seen. Every opportunity you miss because you're too controlled to take risks. Every moment of aliveness you trade for the safety of numbness. It all adds up. And here's what really gets me. You think you're protecting the people around you by not expressing what you feel. But you're not protecting them. You're depriving them. You're depriving them of knowing who you actually are. You're depriving them of the chance to love the real you instead of the performance you've been giving. Your anger isn't your enemy. Your suppression of anger is your enemy. Your anger is just energy that needs direction. It's information that needs processing. It's part of your aliveness that you've been taught to fear. The men who command real respect aren't the ones who never feel anything. They're the ones who feel everything and respond consciously. They're the ones who can sit with discomfort without being controlled by it. They're the ones who process their emotions instead of being processed by them. This work isn't comfortable. It's not supposed to be. But neither is spending your whole life at war with your own feelings. Neither is looking back in 20 years and realizing you were never really present for any of it because you were too busy monitoring and controlling yourself. The choice is simple. Learn to work with your emotions or keep being worked over by them. Learn to process or keep pretending. Learn to be real or keep being perfect. What's it going to be? Are you going to keep suffocating yourself with this idea of control? Or are you going to learn what real emotional discipline actually looks like? Drop a comment and tell me, what's the anger you've been carrying that you've never let yourself fully feel? What's the thing you're mad about that you keep telling yourself doesn't matter? If this hit you where you needed to be hit, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's more where this came from, and most of it's going to make you just as uncomfortable as this did. Watch the next video that shows up. You're going to need it. Until then, stop being a stranger to yourself. See you in the next video.